Last week, Katie showed us how to combine images to make a panorama. And when I first took this class, I was aware that there was a way in Photoshop that you could combine images like macro photography for focus, and so that you could get a really focused image at different depths. And then I also had heard about this thing called HDR, which stands for high dynamic range. And so two of the things I wanted to make sure I learned in Photoshop was both how to stack images for focus and also to stack images for the high dynamic range. So the first type that I want to talk about is called focus stacking, and this can be used in a number of different ways. But you'll notice that when I used my macro lens to take this picture, and this is a piece of decor in our house that I wish did not exist in our house, but my husband loves it. And so you'll notice that over here, it's pretty well in focus, but that over here, it's completely out of focus. And this is partially because with a macro, it can only focus so far into the image, right? So you can take multiple images focused at different places and then use Photoshop to bring them together. In doing some of the research for this, you can use this for macro photography, which is what I was interested in, but you can also use it when you're taking photos at a wide angle and you want the stuff that's really close to you to be in focus, as well as the stuff that's really far away from you to be in good focus. And apparently, though I haven't really looked into this in too much detail, you can also use this focus stacking when you're taking photos with really low light conditions. So what I'm going to hope to do in our Blackboard Collaborate session is to application share the step-by-step process to do a focus stacking using this lovely piece of kitsch that's in our home. And so if you'll notice, I took a total of 5 images, and this is just showing 3 of the images that I'm going to use for this process. Before you can do any sort of focus stacking, you need to consider how you take the original photos that you're going to use. And probably the most important thing is to use a tripod because you want to get exactly the same image just with different focus distances. And so if you're not using a tripod, chances are good you will end up bumping or moving the camera, and you personally are unlikely to stay totally in the same place. Though, as you know, Photoshop can do that align the images thing, and then you could just crop around the outside. However, first recommendation is to take photos with a tripod, and also to use a camera that allows you to put it on manual mode so that you can keep the exposure the exact same on all of your images. Whereas if you have a camera that is automatically adjusting for exposure, you'll get some weird light issues with your images. Um, it is recommended, I read through 3 or 4 different blogs about doing this, that you start at the far focus point and then that you move toward yourself. So if you're, as you're standing behind the camera, so you start far away and then you move, and then you successively move closer to yourself. And depending on the size of what you, like the size of your image and how detail do you want and how perfect you want it to be, it's recommended that you get between 4 to 10 images. Now that you have your 4 to 10 images, the next step obviously is to open up Photoshop, and then you want to go to the File menu, look down at the bottom, and there's that choice that we've used to do the photo merge before, and it's called Automate, and then you are going to use Photo Merge again, just like we did with the panorama last week. When you choose Photo Merge, you're going to get this box that comes up, right? So this Photo Merge box. And so you need to add the 5 or 6 or 10 images that into here that you're going to use to do the focus stacking. And so to do that, you click on your Browse button. You go to the location on your computer, and these were my 5 images. So I hit Shift and clicked on each one of the images that I wanted to bring in, and then they automatically populated this box over here. And then you want to make sure that you don't have blend images together checked, because, well, I'm not actually sure what the because is there, but I was told not to do it. And then when you get into Photoshop, all of your images will be lined up here. And you want to select them all. That's the next step. So step one, again, was once you've clicked Photo Merge, you browse. You go to the location on your computer where the photos live, and you select them all. Then you make sure that there are none of these boxes checked down here, and it will open them up in Photoshop, and then you want to click in here and do a Command A or a Control A to select all, or just hold your Shift button down and click on each one of them so you've selected all of them. So instead of blending the layers in that last step, we're actually going to do one final step that was recommended, and this is to do an auto blend layers. And so this is found in the edit area, and then it's auto blend layers. So you look for your edit menu, and I'm sorry, I cut that off up here. So edit and then auto blend layers is your next choice. And for the focus stacking, or using multiple, we're going to do something called stacking images, right? Because we're not going to try to stitch them together from left to right. We're actually going to stack them on top of each other. And I tried it both ways and found that we do indeed want seamless tones and colors to be checked. Otherwise, you get some weird blotchy things in the background. And now, voila, you have an edit mask added to each of your images, and it has picked out on purpose the areas of the best focus, and then scrubbed out the areas of the low focus. Just to show you what I mean about having this seamless tones and colors turned on or off, with it turned off, you get these little weird blotchy things around the dinosaur's head, whereas when you have it checked, then those weird blotchy things don't show up. So I would recommend having that checked. The second use for stacking is to take images that are at different exposures, so in other words, that have different amounts of light let in, and stack them together so that you're getting the best exposure, or the sort of the recommended exposure for each part of your image. Like with focus stacking, you need to have the right type of photos before you're going to want to do any sort of HDR processing or high dynamic range processing. So again, camera on manual and using a tripod. In this case, you want to keep your ISO and your aperture constant, and you want to change the shutter speed for this. So you're changing, the only thing you're going to change is your shutter speed. You want to start at a low light exposure, so when an image comes out really dark, and then you want to work your way towards a high light exposure so that the image comes out way too light. And you needed a minimum 2 to 3 images, but they recommend 3 to 6 images for this process. And I got my information from a number of different websites. One of them that was, oh shoot, hold on, I'll tell you what the names of them are. Let's see. One is called Picture Correct, and then the other place that I looked was a place called SLR Lounge. And so those were the two places where I sort of read about the details about what type of photo to take. Okay, now that being said, we'll go ahead and go on to the next slide. Now that we have our images and they're on our computer, we're going to open up Photoshop. We're going to kind of go to the same place, right? We're going to go to to the file and to automate, but this time, instead of choosing Photo Merge, we're going to choose the Merge to HDR Pro choice. Like the last time, it brings up a dialog box that asks us to go find the pictures. And so like before, we browse to where the photos are. We'll select those photos and it'll put them in this box, right? And then we're gonna just click this OK. There will then be a short amount of processing time, and you'll get an image that is the merge, the HDR merge of both of your images, and you'll see that my two images are down here in this little film strip area, and you'll notice that I have everything's a bit brighter in the big box image, and I get some of the basic abilities to change some blur and some tone and some shadow, highlight, vibrant, saturation, and what have you before I even finish the image and say okay. Or you can just say okay to see what your initial image looks like and add these things afterwards with, you know, so that they're less destructive in Photoshop with layers and masks and whatnot. So this is the final image that is created by the HDR Pro Merge. And if I had had lots of time, I've been watching quite a few different tutorials from Phlearn, and I was watching one where, you know, we could use some masking and come in and just darken like these regions, this region that's just a little too light. Anyhow, so I have some ideas as to what I might like to learn next, but I hope you enjoyed learning these two things. They're pretty straightforward. Mostly it takes just planning the shots so that you have the right type of images to merge in Photoshop.